Hi everyone, we are working with division and fractions. We are towards the end of chapter 10. But today's lesson is all about dividing unit fractions. There are tricks to do this, but they only apply to certain equations, so please pay attention to which steps I'm doing according to the type of equation. I'm going to show you both examples. So our first equation is going to be 2 divided by 1/5. Now notice that this equation is saying take 2 wholes and break them up into fifths. That would be very different if I was taking a fraction and dividing that by a whole. That's a whole other process. So our first example is when we're doing a whole number and we're dividing that whole into fractions. So what this says is it says take 2 wholes and divide them into fifths because there's a 5 there. And then all you need to do is count up how many you have. I have 10, so our answer is 10. Pretty easy, right? Let's do another one. Let's say I have 3 divided by 1/3. Now again, I'm dividing a whole number. My whole number is in the front of the equation. That's the only time this applies. So take 3 bar diagrams or 3 wholes, and they want them broken up into thirds. Each of them broken up into thirds. And then count how many pieces you have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. My answer is 9. Okay, so that's how you divide a whole number by a unit fraction. Whole number by a unit fraction. The whole number tells you how many wholes to draw, and then the fraction tells you how many pieces are in each whole. Your answer is how many total pieces did you create. Now let's see what happens when we do a fraction by a whole number, because that's a little different, and I'm going to show you a trick on how to do it. It only applies when you're dividing a fraction by a whole number. So what if I did 1/3 divided by 4? Do you see how this is different? I can't take a third and then I'm going to divide that into 4 pieces. That's very, very different, okay? So actually there's a trick to this. What you can do is put a 1 on top of your whole number and then change this to multiplication and multiply across, which would give you 1/12, and that's actually the answer. What if I had 1/2 times 6? The trick is and 1/2 divided by 6, that's the original equation. When you're dividing a fraction, you can put a 1 on top of the whole number and change it to multiplication and multiply across to get your answer. It would be 1/12, okay? Now, how was that different? Let me show you now both ways and why they're different now that we've seen both. So if I was doing 4 divided by 1/2, that's very different if I did 1/2 divided by 4. Because over here, I'm dividing 4 wholes. Over here, I'm dividing a half. So there are different steps. When you're dividing by a whole number, you can go ahead and draw your model. So I have 4 wholes, and they say break them up into halves, and then count how many pieces you have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So my answer would just be 8. How do we do it when we are dividing a fraction? This is opposite, right? You put a 1 on top of the whole number, change it to multiplication, and multiply across. It would be 1/8. So do you see how both of those were different? Do the models for this type of equation. Do our multiplication trick when you're dividing a fraction, okay? All right, you guys, I hope that helps you. Have fun with one of our last lessons as far as dividing and multiplying fractions.